Awesome. So welcome to the podcast, AJ. So let's get right into it. So you spent your career making people care about brands that had no reason to care about, like, the accounting software, the email marketing tools. So walk me through exactly how you do that, from the brief to getting published. What does that entire process look like?
That's a good question. Yeah, I've worked across some traditionally, I guess, more boring brands. I've worked for colleges, audiobooks, in the finance space. I think, I would say everything that I do comes back to storytelling. The basis, and I trained at university in television production, and a lot of that was in creative storytelling and script writing, that kind of thing. So I think that really set me up with a great foundation of how I wanted to attack content going forwards. And I feel like very often a lot of people on that course and a lot of people that I've met since are very tech focused in how they approach content. Like, what are the best tools to be using? What is the best equipment? And then when you actually get to filming it, you've not got a thought out script or a storyboard, or, you've really not thought about the story you're trying to tell. And so often with the edits and things that I work on, we're having to re-engineer, okay, what is the story out of what we've shot here? It looks perfect and it's crystal clear, but what is the story we're trying to tell? Particularly when, as you say, it's kind of the content's maybe more dry and it's a boring topic. You've really got to hone into, I guess, what people ultimately buy from is people care about people, and people want to hear those stories be told, not, just the factual information or, whatever it is you're trying to sell. People connect with people. So I think if we can bring it all back to that, it sort of doesn't matter what it is that you're talking about, what the industry is, the heart shines through, if that makes sense.
Right. So storytelling is like the key component to making like, even for a pen, if you wanted to sell this pen, what's the story behind the pen, right? I totally agree. So when you're building an influencer campaign, for example, right, what is the actual criteria you use to pick a creator? Like, what's the real scorecard you use internally? What gets someone on that list and what kind of cuts them out?
That's a good question. I think in the majority of places that I've worked on influencer content, I would say, first of all, followers are not in part of the conversation. They're maybe on the deck that gets sent over from the agent or that the influencer sent over, but it's not something that we're actively sort of looking at in the content. Yes, we will break you down into whether you're a macro, mid-tier or micro creator based on how many followers you have, but that really has so little impact then on how we want to judge whether we want to work with you on a campaign or what it is that we want to create together. And to be honest, I've worked with more, particularly over the last 5 or 6 years, with more micro creators than we are with the larger scale creators, because you tend to see that the cut through from micro creators and mid-tier. When we're talking micro, we're at, maybe 10,000 followers, somebody with 10,000. I think the lowest I've worked with one brand was, I think, 2,000 followers. And you know what, actually the signups, that was for an event, and the signups that we got for that were like 300 signups. It was more than we've had with some creators that have 500,000 followers. So I think looking at mind share and audience is way more important. One thing that we do a lot when we're looking at content, because we do look at the videos that creators are putting out and the views, is I tend to look at, instead of follower rate, the last average 10 to 15 videos, and then I look at the views of those, and then we get an average so that we can understand, okay, maybe you had 1 million followers from 10 years ago, but now your content is producing this much and is speaking to this size of an audience. So creators often tend to maybe not like that, because it's such an honest way of looking at what your active audience size is, but it gives us a much better basis of understanding who are you speaking to. And I guess you have to also keep in mind, depending on what type of campaign it is, if it's an organic campaign and we're speaking solely to your audience, then followers are and engagement is going to matter more. Very often when you're working with brands, if it's a paid campaign that they're going to spend money on, the brand is going to put paid spend to rocket it to people that don't even know you and don't even know that creator's audience. So sometimes that the size of their audience isn't actually that important. It's more about the authenticity, the message they tell, the storytelling that they have, and can they tell that story to a fresh audience who might not know them as well.
Absolutely. So just a quick follow-up regarding that. So when you say you look at the average 10 to 15 videos from before, do you guys also take a look at the engagement rate of the creator? Is that a big thing?
Yeah, 100%. I think engagement rate is important as well. I think I'm always, I'm the kind of person that will obsess and look into comments and look at who are the types of people that are commenting. Is it loads of people commenting 3 emojis and that's the whole thing? Or is it, people that are also super verified? Some creators, you see there's a list of like 20 other verified creators saying, this is amazing and love that. And I think those are certain signals that kind of tell you, what you're looking for. What I'm looking for out of comments is those genuine things that look real. This stuck out to me because I love this content. Comments with substance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is super important.
So, say for example, a creator who's stuck on 300 followers right now on Instagram, how can they build something substantial? So, if you were to recruit them, you'd be like, okay, this guy or this lady has potential. Let's work with them. What are those key things you look out for, like a 300 follower person or 200 or something?
Sure. I think it can always depend on your niche. I think if it's, if you're looking at, for example, the lifestyle niche or creative industry niche or gaming, that kind of thing, like I say, having a small but core community of followers, when I'm looking through it, like I'm often flicking through people's feeds very quickly, looking at those last 10 to 15 posts. And if I can see some of the same names coming up in the comments each time, that's telling me that you have a community, even though it's small. Like we said, the sort of follower rate might not matter if I'm going to put paid spend behind your content and it's going to go to a much wider audience. But what that does tell me, if I'm seeing the same names in the comments or if I am seeing regular engagement, is that the message that you're sending to people is resonating. People are coming back to consume your content. And so if it's working with that small sector of people, then, it could have better chance of working on a large scale as well.
Absolutely. 100%. So you are the creator of, Adventures of London. Let's talk about that super quick.
Yes.
What is the Adventures of London to begin with?
Yeah, Adventures of London was a bit of a side project that I started a couple of years ago. One of the things that I set with my team is we're all super active on social, whether it's consuming content, and this is the same every company I've ever worked at, and especially when I'm hiring for people in the social media space. I don't just want to look at what roles you've done before. I want to look at what are your personal projects. Is it that you've had a Harry Styles fan account that you've been running for years, or is it, it could be literally whatever. I always say to people, show me examples of you loving and getting deep involved in social rather than I've worked for this brand or this agency. So for starters, I think having a personal project is so important. And I've got loads on the go. I'm like doing Twitch streaming here and there. I've got the Adventures of London TikTok and Instagram account. I've got a Minecraft server that I'm building and creating content on the side. I've got a couple of faceless channels that we're working on at the moment. So I just think having side projects and passions that keep you active on the platforms is super important for multiple reasons, not only for identifying trends and knowing kind of what the storytelling meta is and like what content is resonating with people, but also to keep the skill sharp, especially when, in my role, I've sort of progressed to a more senior role where I'm not in the brands that I'm working on every day. I'm not always in their DMs. I'm not always the one that's posting the content myself. So I think I never want to lose sight of that, and I always want to make sure that I'm in the platforms as much as possible. So that's kind of where Adventures of London came about. I attend a lot of events and shows and things anyway, so for me it made sense to be creating content at that. It was a slow start, I'll be honest, and it was something that I wasn't sure at first is something that I would keep doing or would take off, but actually then I got approached by a couple of brands and folks who wanted to work with me, some that I knew, some actually that I didn't, and had just seen the content, and it's sort of in the last couple of years has gone from there. It's very up and down, I would say. I'm not necessarily posting super consistently on the organic page, but I am doing a lot of work behind the scenes and still working with brands. In fact, one of the reasons that I stopped working with brands so recently was because my backlog was I had brands that are trying to book me for stuff at Christmas, and I have a full-time job and have other stuff going on. So I had to start saying no.
Wow, that's actually so crazy. So what did you actually do for the Adventures of London? Like, what fell flat? What was the moment you knew your account had that real future? Like, what was that point you were like, yeah, this is it, we can make money from this?
Well, like I say, when I started the account, it was pretty much for the love of it, and creating content was, is a passion. I think when I in fact, a couple of the things I did to help assist with the first brand deals and folks reaching out. I remember I went on one holiday where I stayed in a hotel. It was a very new hotel, kind of happened by coincidence in Portugal, and I went and stayed there, and it was so beautiful. I was like, I have to make a video just of the room, so I shot it just in my spare time, bit of downtime, edited it together, narrated it that evening, and uploaded it. And while I was still there, they actually reached out, because you tag the accounts. I woke up the next morning and they DM'd me, said, "We love this. Can we, are you still here? Can we have a chat with you?" So I went and met with a couple of the hotel managers, one of the, I think, brand manager, and they said, "We'd love to license this content. We'd love to work with you on it." So that content I'd create for free then ultimately ended up actually paying off that holiday and more. I didn't get paid till after the holiday, but it would have paid for like extra spending money and even more. Not only did the hotel license it, the restaurant that I showed in the video, they are a separate company that reached out to me and they separately wanted to license the content. I shouted out in the video the company that make the furniture and like the wallpaper and floors, a company called Mui. They reached out to me and they wanted to license it as well. So that one video that I did just kind of in my spare time turned into 3 separate brand deals that I think I saw they had translated it into Portuguese, so it's now AI voiceovered with my voice, but in Portuguese. It's that video has gone wild. Yeah,
that's crazy. It's crazy how like one video could have such a massive butterfly effect on like different brands and different ways of making income through something you love, which is I find it crazy.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's the thing, right, of like not necessarily always waiting for the opportunities to come to you, but just making it work and making it happen because you love what you're doing. And I think also, my background in influencer marketing and the work that I do obviously put me ahead, because I knew when those conversations did come about how to have them. And I guess I kind of knew how to like orchestrate those conversations and give them the best shot by doing things like tagging the people, doing it while I was still staying there, going down and having a chat with the brand manager, the people who controlled the brand deals, and then knowing how to negotiate fees and usage after.
Right. And just so I'm curious, when you say, orchestrate those conversations, like what are some things as a small creator or a creator should look out for while negotiating a brand deal? Like it's like how you did for yourself right now.
It's a good question. I think I would say, number one, knowing your worth. I posted about this on LinkedIn the other day. I still have brands that will reach out, and I had a theatre brand reach out recently, a major UK theatre brand who wanted to give free front row tickets to any theatre show of my choosing in London in exchange for 6 months of paid usage, which obviously to a new growing creator to get free front row tickets, that like one ticket can be like £150, that's like $300 for a couple of tickets. But knowing that they were going to put ad spend behind that content for 6 months, they were going to be creating revenue on that content for 6 months. I know that they're going to make more than $300 on that with the quality of video that was going to be handed over. So that for me was an easy no. I did go back and negotiate a little bit with them to see, was there a rate, or could we set, organically you can use this content and then you'll pay me if you want to, put the paid spend behind it, but they weren't interested. So I think that would be one of my messages to younger creators is know your worth, know the types of rates that other people are kind of setting in the industry, or what creators that are like for like follower size are doing, and go from there. Have the confidence,
Absolutely. So right now, you mentioned you try to post consistently on the Adventures of London account. Sometimes work gets in the way because you are working a full-time job and it's life, right? So give me an actual system, or give me the system. Like, how do you batch videos? How do you ideate videos? How do you publish videos without burning out?
Well, I think having a system is really important. That's like, you make a really good point. Actually having a goal and knowing the purpose of why you're doing it, you can then break down into, okay, well, how much of this do I need to be doing? How much of this do I want to be doing? Because what's the end goal out of this? So I think having, your why and then building your system around that why is super important. And I think from then I would say one of the first things I did, outsourcing, I think was one of the first in not only my day jobs, but also then in my personal projects. Outsourcing is super important because, to your point, you only have one pair of hands and usually a day job and other stuff going on in your life. So you need to sort of get the help where you can, if that's something that you can afford to invest in or get support in. So for me, to be honest, in all of my teams, the first thing that we outsource is the editing, and having a video editor, which right at the start could be something as simple as finding an editor on Fiverr, or somebody on a website that can work project by project on a super small scale. And then once you have the relationships and you build up, in my last job we had an editor that would do 2 days a week. He would invoice every month, and that was a relationship that we ran for years and worked really well. And I've got similar setups in the companies that I work with now, and the projects that I have going on now. The Adventures of London, I have a couple of editors that I cycle between for creating the ad content, and having that process allows me then time to free up and go to more events, reach out to more brands, do some of that stuff. I guess equally a good point on that is I've worked with a couple of virtual assistants in scoping these new deals and helping. One of the things I've struggled with is fielding emails, and I don't have a manager, or I'm not with an agency to support on that, because to me, investing all of the income that I get back into the project is more important than giving away a cut. And I have enough people reaching out organically at the moment, which is, is a blessing. So I sort of don't need anyone to broker those deals for me, because I know how to do it. I just needed somebody to help field them and know which type of ideas I did want to run with and what things I wasn't interested in. So, having somebody to help field some of that and kind of gatekeep a little bit was really useful. And I'd say part of that is the power of saying no and knowing what to turn down and what's right. Again, coming back to your why and what it is you want to do and what your goal is.
Absolutely. And coming back to the ideation, because as a creator as well, like I have my own Instagram, YouTube, and ideation as a single creator, doing it all by myself is the most stressful, frustrating thing, because you're trying to see if it's going to pass the pub test, right? They're trying to see if it's gonna gonna make sense. Is it feasible? So how do you manage ideation?
Well, like I said, I think I spend more time than most people would care to admit on social. And I think, whenever I'm seeing the worst thing about working in social and being a creator is then it ruins the opportunity to sit and just doom scroll and enjoy being a consumer of content, right? Yeah. Because always I'm bookmarking, here's a good hook for this, here's a good idea for this. Like I said, the storytelling meta is always changing, and the type of content that works. So I'm always looking at that and favoriting that content, and that then can spark the idea for a brief, particularly if a brand comes to us and says, we've got this kind of message that we want to hear, or they've got certain notes. They will have bullet points of like certain points they want to cover, whether it's about their product or about their industry. I can then look at, well, actually there's this trend that leans quite well into that. Why don't we use, and I'm not necessarily talking about like a dance trend or music or something, but maybe it's the trend of like red flags and green flags, and like using that as a basis to start a piece of content behind that makes it feel super organic but can still land the brand messages. So looking at trends is always really important. And then from that, just being creative. I think even in my day job, one of the really important things I do as an influencer manager is to make sure that when we're setting briefs and we're working as a company, we're not just telling the creators that we want to work with, here's the brief, here's the script, here's what you need to do. It really is a super collaborative project, because the creators know their industry, their audience, and know to the point that the metas and what's working on social often better than the people working at the brands do. So they should have creative control. I think influencer partnerships should always be a relationship and something that you build together. That's when you see the best ones come through it. That's when the comments are like, give these people a raise, or like, get your bag. This brand deal was great.
Absolutely. And I'm curious to know, what's the best one you've seen so far, the best hook you've seen so far that's working in 2026? That's a little tricky thing our audience can use.
It's a great question. Yeah, in terms of good hooks and things that are working at the moment, I mean, I always think, like, coming back to storytelling, actually one of the biggest things that we're seeing in 2026 is the stripping back of a lot of the previous metas that were working, stripping back a lot of the kind of like the the gimmicks, I suppose, and coming back to sitting down and talking to a camera, and often not necessarily with music, often, whether it's somebody sitting down and doing something, having a visual hook, super important, be creating something, or, doing what you would be doing in your normal life, but not leaning on the creative, tools that we'd used in the past, or the, like I say, the gimmicks. I think that is working really well. So far in 2026, we're seeing a huge comeback, not just on platforms like TikTok and Instagram, but also on YouTube, of unedited raw videos, the sit down talkie. People are consuming more content than ever before. Particularly long form content is performing better than it ever has before. So I think coming back to that is super important. I would say starting there is a good place. I don't think you need all the bells and whistles necessarily all the time. Like, I think, even we see faceless accounts are really popping off in 2026, and actually the sort of rejection of influencer as a thing, the rise of the faceless creators is super popping. So I was giving a workshop the other day and said, it was with business owners, and they, the question came up of, I'm a business owner and I hate the idea of being on camera. What do I do? How do I grow an audience? And actually, it was a company that the owner had a dog. I was like, make your dog the owner, like tell the story, use a voice filter, and have your dog be the CEO of your company and tell that story. And that's something that they're running with. And, there's so many ways to do it in 2026 that you don't need to stick to, just what you're seeing out there.
100%, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more that the more generic, plain, easy, less filtered storytelling videos are literally crushing it right now. Like, I'm seeing people on Instagram just with cinematic videos, them making a coffee, going viral, and people are, like, oh, this is the best video I've seen all day. And then brands reaching out to them for coffee meetups and whatnot. It's really interesting to see.
Really cool.
There's a really good creator online called Jayhawk, Johnny Hollish. I'm not sure if you heard of him.
Okay, I'm not familiar, but I'm going to have a look after this.
Yeah, he literally started his career by just making reviews of electric products, which he bought, and then the brands reached out to him, and now he's crushing it. So it's really interesting to see. But coming back to you as an executive social, right? This is probably the most or biggest untapped opportunity most companies are ignoring. So walk me through how you actually get a senior executive to show up on camera authentically, even though they're terrified of it, like you mentioned before with the dog owner, right? So walk me through what works, what doesn't work, what do coaches get completely wrong when it comes to this kind of thing?
Yeah, so for exec socials, to be clear, we're talking about leadership in large companies showing up on socials and being the voices of their brands. This is something that has obviously been a huge trend on LinkedIn, and something that we've seen more and more, but with some success and certainly a lot of conversation. The CEO of McDonald's being a great example of, exec socials done in an interesting way that caused a bit of a, when he took a bite of a burger and called it a product, and, was acting a little inhuman. So we've seen the good sides of it. We've seen the bad sides of it. But I would say there is a net gain in leaning into exec socials, particularly in a world where social, to be successful, needs to be a network of accounts for brands. It's not just about having one social profile that you're posting through. It's having your main brand account, especially on channels like LinkedIn, where actually brand pages get a lot less viewership right off the bat than personal pages. I think it was LinkedIn that was saying that posting on a personal brand page can help you get 30% additional reach right off the bat compared to company pages. So I think leaning into creating a network of having your brand page, having your exec social page, even having employees posting as well is super important. But to your point, getting over the hurdle of having people who didn't come into the business because they are creators or influencers or want to be that is tricky to get them posting on social. I think the ones who have been through PR training and do a lot of external events or media appearances, that kind of thing, it can sometimes be easier because that is a kind of, it's an adaptation of that. But for those who haven't, it's a learning process. I think the things that we've tried, I remember a previous company that I'd worked at, we had an exec who had no interest. That when I started working with them, their profile was a blank. They didn't even have a profile picture. But actually going through the process and showing them some of their peers and starting with them and saying, who do you admire and who do you look up to in your space, and showing the content that they were creating, and then help them come out of their comfort zone a bit and feel like they could align to people who are like them. So starting there, and then, we would always get pushback on things like, I don't want to be in the posts, and having to educate on, people are following you to see content from you. They're not following you just to see content from the brand or from your customers or for, the team that you're working with. They want to see that, but they want to see you in the content as well. So when we look at exec socials, that's something we always lean on, is making sure that whoever's posting, it's coming from their point of view. So I think that's a good place to start. Outside of that, it is just repetition and getting more comfortable. And if it's not trying video straight away, it's trying a picture, or, like I say, candid stuff at events is a great way to start, and building up their comfortability. And then, to be honest, as it was in that previous company, it was showing the results and showing, here's a brand product release that you did, and a link to the website and a generic graphic. And then here's a picture that you showed of your family on holiday, and just talking about that you were taking a week off and wishing everybody well. And look at, often the 3, 4, 5x times better results that got. And then I think the penny starts to drop a little bit, and they lean a little further in. But this has always been something that we've struggled with. In any large company, I'm sure people working in exec or in comms or marketing are dealing with. Not everybody wants to be an influencer, right? It's
right.
It's a challenge.
But in 2026, right, the creator economy is literally crushing so many, like for example, Netflix is trying to copy YouTube right now with their shows and the interviews and things like that. And YouTube's doing the same. They buy it back with the shows tab right now. Yeah. So how important is it? Like, if you want to be successful in 2026, how do you do it without having a personal brand, technically, right?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I think personal brand is really, even going back, 5-6 years, personal brand was not a thing that was talked about. It wasn't even Googled. So I think it is this super new phenomenon that we've come across. And I come back to the point of building a network and having, if you're working with a brand or even as a creator, having different platforms that you can use, and being able to have voices in different places. For us as a brand, that includes working with the influencers and with the creators, and having that network of people singing the same message but in their own tone of voice. And then for the creator, that could be as simple as having the different platforms, but each one of your platforms speaks to a different part of you or a different thing that you're interested in. Maybe that's not always you being the face of it and you being front and center, but it's your interests and your own personal spin, because no one's going to be able to tell the story like you do. So ultimately, I think personal brands are here to stay. I think that is something that we all have to become more comfortable with, and push through the cringe, right? I think
absolutely.
To us, when you're sat there with that blank LinkedIn box of saying, what do you want to talk about, or Instagram or Twitter or whatever it is, it's super daunting. But actually, when have you ever thought that while you're scrolling on your feed and looking at content from somebody else? When are you ever thinking that it's cringe that someone's posted that? Or, it's so rare that anybody cares about what anybody else is doing that I just, every creator that I talk to says they wish they'd started posting earlier, or they wish they'd just given it a shot, or they wish they had more time. So I think if people can just get past that, they'll see the results they need.
Absolutely. Like, I've been a victim to that as well. I was like, dude, I should have started posting earlier. Dang it. But I've started posting again for the past 4.5 years now. It's very hard.
The consistency as well is another thing. To your point, you mentioned about having other, for me, it's having a day job, it's having other creative projects going on. For you, you've got a lot of stuff going on as well. So I feel like finding the consistency is super tricky, and sometimes it can drop down to to the lower to-do list. But I think knowing, again, coming back to your why, coming back to your mission and what you want to achieve, and knowing how your personal brand and how biting through the awkwardness and starting early with your content fits into that, is how you're going to get success.
Absolutely. And I also do think it's really important to have a full-time job while you're making content until your content starts paying for you. Because I know so many people quitting their full-time jobs to make content, but then they're stuck because they don't have any income coming in. And they get into this trap cycle of oh shit, what do I do? What's the next step to potentially make more money? And then they kind of just stop content and find a full-time job again. So
yeah, it's always the hardest thing, right? Where it's you want to take that jump. But I think one of the things, I was talking to a creator the other day who said that the thing that they never realized was that when they had the full-time job and other streams of income and they were creating content, it was their passion and it was a project that they love doing. When it then becomes the other way around and that is your stream of income, suddenly there is so much pressure that is your job, and sometimes the fun can very quickly be removed from it. So I think to your point, building it up to be standing on its own 2 feet before you have to lean on it is so important, and something that a lot of creators don't. They're understandably, they want to jump right into it and they want to have all their time invested into it. But I think unless you've got investments or family members or things that you can lean on, I think making sure that you've got your streams of income set first is also going to work better for your audience. They're going to buy into you because you're creating content for the love of it and it's not your sole focus. And then when you want to transition, and you've built the community and they've bought into you as a person, and then I think is the right time to do it. Rather than, people can sometimes see the desperation or the lack of consistency in what you're creating because you're just trying to find the next trend or the next thing that's going to get you the viral hit that's going to bring in an audience. And that doesn't work. In 2026, the meta is not chasing the trends. Even on brand accounts, we've really leaned away from leaning on trends in my past couple of roles. And, I do some consulting with companies who I've said, don't worry about chasing the trends. The viral sounds, that kind of stuff, is so infrequent that someone will follow you from a viral video versus actually a niche that you're in and that they care about and a topic that they want to hear again and again. We are always now leaning into series content. And I hear it from friends at other brands as well, developing series of content, whether it's a part 1, part 2 type series, or whether it's just a repeatable format that you can come back to. And this is the same for brands or creators. Find what's often sometimes called the golden viral creative, or the thing that you become known for. For you, is it this podcast? Is it your LinkedIn content? Find the thing that people want to keep consuming, and then iterate based on that, and find different ways of telling that same story or getting that same feeling across for your audience, and tell it in 50 different ways, 100 different ways. That's when you're going to build the community that are actually going to care about what you have to say and stick with you for the long term.
Yeah, that's a golden nugget right there, what you've given the audience right now. It's really crazy to see what you can do. And to add to that point as well, there are people are doing UGC full time, for example.
Yeah,
they're making a bunch. I'm making money from UGC too right now, and it's crazy. And I believe you did that as well for a bit, right?
Absolutely. And I think the power of UGC is so untapped. Even as brands, a previous brand that I was working with was a consumer products brand, and we needed people to be showing the product all the time, every day. We needed videos of people using the products. And actually, UGC creators were not always positioning themselves quite right for brands to be able to reach out and do that. I think it's got a lot better now, but I think I say again, I come back to the point of if you're a budding UGC creator, start finding the things that you love and the brands that you want to work with, and make a video about that product, and then send it to that brand. DM it to their social media manager or their influencer manager and say, look, here is what I can do for you. Would you like to license this? Or can we work on a brief together that uses my creative, input and gets this message that you want to get across? And that's where you have the perfect kind of partnership. So I love UGC creators. I think, is the future.
100%. And yeah, that's actually a method I'm going to use myself and let you know if it works,
Nice.
how to position myself correctly. I'm going to send that video, that brand I want to work with, and I'm going to report back to you.
Well, like I said, I did that on the holiday. I stayed there. I love traveling, and that turned into 3 separate deals to be done. Yeah. So I think it can work.
100%. So currently, most creators are optimized for views, right? And they kind of don't build anything substantial. So what is the actual difference between someone sitting on 500K followers with no business and someone with like 10 to 50K with real income coming in?
It's a good question. To your point, that makes me think of somebody I know who has 700,000 followers and are making pennies from it. I think their ad revenue for it was earlier in the year, but a month at the start of the year was like $30 for the month.
Wow.
Versus I know, I have other friends who, like I said, are on sort of maybe 5, 10K followers who are turning over 4, sometimes 5 figures a month. And it really comes down to, having that consistency in that audience and knowing what you stand for. I think the difference between those two folks is really, it's the fact that you don't necessarily need the large followers in a world where people can just buy followers. And most brands now are switched on to the fact that you can buy followers, and actually you can buy views as well, and you can buy engagement. So that's why I always try to work, to your point, with a bit of a scorecard of being able to flick through someone's socials and see, okay, are these real people that are commenting? Are these real engagements? Do the views sort of match what I'm seeing? Is it consistent? And I think it's a lot easier to tell when it's not genuine with a larger creator. It's sometimes very obvious. And as somebody who's then putting out those briefs and signing those contracts, it's it's not appealing when there's the large follower base, but then it's not married up. I would so much rather work with a small creator who knows their community and has that authenticity. Yeah,
absolutely. And yeah, it's really interesting to see how it's the death of the big creator and the rise of the small creator, right? Because there's a theory on YouTube called the baseline theory. So
okay,
YouTube,
I've not heard of that.
Yeah, it's like when YouTube takes a look at your past 5 to 10 videos, and when you upload a new video, they kind of give an estimate that, okay, this video is going to get XYZ views. And it kind of gives an estimate of like your new video based on your past video data. So that's why it's so much harder for a big creator to kind of break through than a small creator. A small creator can shoot through that baseline so easily because they can just copy what the big creators done. But the big creators have to get really competitive. So it's really interesting to see that entire change with these social media platforms, Instagram, YouTube, whatever.
100%. It's the 1 of 10, right? Like this video is a 1 out of your past 10. It's the best performing out of the last 10 videos. That's super inspiring as well. I love, as a creator myself, trying to shoot for those videos and make more 1 of 10s is keeps the keeps us going.
It keeps me motivated that, okay, I'm doing something correct. Let's recreate that in a different way. But here's a hard question though. Most influencer campaigns don't really work, right? So why do brands keep spending what they're actually measuring? Like, and if you had control over every influencer budget, what would change?
Wow, if I had creative control over every influencer budget, what would I change? That's a big question. I think firstly, on your point of a lot of brand deals don't work, 100%. And I think, there is, in the industry where we're hearing influencers are more and more important and brands are often being told, invest more into influencers without the expertise and without having people who have been on both sides of the coin. I think that's, one of my real strengths that I play to is that I've been the influencer and know what it means to be a creator, but have then worked on the side where I'm signing the deals and looking for creators. And I think to know how the ecosystem works is super important. So having somebody in-house that can support with that is valuable, and not necessarily always just leaning on an agency who can do that for you is super important. But also I would say on the point of kind of what are you tracking. I think too often a brand campaign will come down to top of funnel metrics. We talk in influencer a lot about the funnel, right? Of being sort of top of funnel being brand awareness, middle of funnel being consideration or maybe sign-ups or leads, and then bottom of funnel being conversions, actual sales. I think so often people think about influencer campaigns and they think of the top of funnel metrics. They think of just getting views, getting eyeballs on your product, whereas actually for the majority of businesses, what they really care about is those sales and money coming in. And so I think if your influencer campaign can't speak to all three levels of the funnel, then that needs to be coming from another place. So actually, when we are working with creators, we're looking at, yes, how can we get brand awareness? And sometimes that comes down to creating different assets, because different pieces of content will appeal to different steps of the funnel. Maybe a very organic feeling piece of content that talks very softly about the brand in a wider piece of content that's talking about a bunch of things will do a very different job to a very tight 20 to 30 second mention of the brand. Here's this product and how I use it and what I love about it and why you need it. And sometimes you need from a creator things at both sides, both sort of ends of that spectrum. Mm-hmm. That's something I would say to people who are creating UGC content or people who want to be influencers is lean into content at all steps of the funnel and don't be shy.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's not something you want to post on your own organic socials, but often actually middle and bottom of funnel ads are things that are posted dark and things that the brand will put pay to spend behind. So it's not going to go on your channel, but it's going to be an asset that the brand can use to then, put ad revenue behind and make money from. So don't be shy of leaning into the more ad type content.
Absolutely. But could we talk about the funnel once more, the funnel metrics? Could we break it down? Like, what's the top, medium tier or mid tier and the bottom tier? Like, could we just talk about that super quick?
For sure, yeah. Looking at KPIs, I mean, at the top of funnel, you are looking at, what most people are tracking. That's brand awareness. It's things like reach, views, engagements. Mm-hmm. That is what we would consider top of funnel metrics. And those are super important if your brand campaign objective is get the word out, talk about what the campaign is, get awareness. Then as you're moving down to the middle of funnel, that's where we talk about affinity more. So the difference between brand awareness and brand affinity. Brand awareness is, do I know what your brand is? Brand affinity is, do I care about your brand? There are a lot of brands I know about I have no interest in because I have no affinity and I'm not at that middle of funnel stage. So when we look at middle of funnel, those are really intent metrics. Those are things where people are looking at, maybe as a partnership, you're helping drive signups for a webinar or for an event or to an ebook or a download or something like that. People actually giving over something like their email address or clicking attend on an event or going to a website and web traffic is a great KPI to measure for middle of funnel. So those things are, intent signals that sit in the middle. Then obviously as we come down to the bottom of funnel, like I say, it's sales, it's signups, it's revenue. Those are the bottom of funnel KPIs that, are the most important to the business. And any good brand will work across a campaign that has all three layers of that happening at once, either with different creators of different stages of the funnel, or like I said, an asset that will work at top and then a different asset that will work middle and bottom of funnel.
That is fantastic. That is like a masterclass right there. For people who want to understand what makes a good content piece, especially for UGC creators who are watching this. That is absolutely fantastic. But thank you for that. And
of course,
AI, it's like right now we're having a crazy rise of AI. Like everyone's talking about AI, Claude AI, ChatGPT, things like that. So AI has literally flooded content, right? Like you see what performs for a major brand and what performs on your own channel. The AI assisted content are actually underperforming yet? And when do you think people will generally stop tolerating it, or AI content?
When will people stop tolerating it? That's a good question. I think I suppose it depends what audience you're looking at, right? Like I think Gen Z, younger audiences are, I think, much more tapped in now to when something is AI slop and are not tolerating it already. I think, the AI influencer content that you see, or, I've seen from some brands, full AI influencers trying to sell stuff. And I cannot tell you how fast people scroll away from that and aren't interested. But then when you look actually, at older demographics, sometimes the tolerance is actually a little higher, maybe either because the sort of the level of understanding or just the exposure is not at the same level yet. So I think it is something that, my philosophy on AI content and in the influencer ecosystem is always using AI to support and as a tool, but never as the brain or the creative behind it. So, I, in my Adventures of London, for example, use AI to help refine my hooks and to write scripts and to create shot lists. And actually some of the ideas that it comes up with for things I can film while I'm out and about and just giving me a list of things to shoot are things I never would have thought of and actually have really paid off, because I take what the AI has created and put my personal creative flair on it, right? And that's what people have bought into, is my brain. So I think, using it for that, I wouldn't necessarily be using it for as a replacement, I suppose, but building workflows, again, equally behind the scenes, like having a workflow of having an AI agent or an artifact that can take a cold email, understand whether it's a useful brand deal or something to engage with, and then serve it up, or even respond and do the deal on your behalf. If you built up the AI in that way, is another great time-saving tool, and lets you then do what the AI can't, which is go out and shoot this product, or go out and go to this event, or, have the phone call with the brand partnerships team. That's how I'm leaning into AI, but I think the tolerance is going to quickly, decrease and decrease as AI slop continues to infiltrate the internet. I'm hoping we don't really come to the point of dead internet theory, where AI creators are pumping out the content and then AI bots are in the comments and replying to all the content, and where are the real humans? I hope we don't go too much further down that route.
I couldn't agree more. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because recently there's a new Cat in the Hat movie coming out, and everyone's feed, like at least from Gen Z and the next generation Alpha or whatever it's called, everyone's feed is full of the Cat in the Hat movie, the original 2000 movie or something, the live action one, and they're making horror edits on it. And then it's like a marketing scheme, but it also plays into the dead internet theory, which kind of makes me a bit nervous about that. I don't know what you guys think about it, but it's quite unnerving and quite disturbing, some of those.
Yeah, I love that. But, tapping into nostalgia. And again, it comes back to that sort of storytelling, what people love, what people engage with, what people want to watch on socials, I think is something that a lot of brands often forget about, is that, people aren't going on socials to be sold to or told about this new thing or given news. They just want to, at the end of the day, sit back and scroll and be entertained and enjoy stuff. So I think, whether you're a creator or a film studio or you're a brand, being able to just entertain and give something for people to watch and consume is the goal.
Absolutely. And talking about film studios real quick, as a side note, have you seen the movie Obsession?
Do you know, I haven't, but the amount of conversations I've had about Obsession is wild. I'm nervous to watch that film because I feel like it's going to taint my perspective, and I'm going to then approach things in a maybe not a positive way. Why? You've seen it?
I saw it and I'm so happy. A YouTuber made the movie. Same for Backrooms, it's no backing from a serious film studio. It's really inspirational. But what's your take on it though? What made you change the perspective on it?
Well, I guess taking Backrooms as an example. I mean, I was first a YouTuber back in, I don't know, 2008, 2010 is when I started creating YouTube content. And back then, you couldn't make any money from it. It was just a weird thing that people thought I was very weird for doing. So to have come from then to where we are now and seeing, to your point, the Backrooms being shot by the guy who made the original videos and creating that is, super full circle for us. And to see the ecosystem that has come around it is super validating. But I'm waiting for what the next step step of it is. And I think you touched on a good point before about how Netflix is now competing with YouTube, and sort of it's almost gone in the other way, where previously it was will YouTube overtake Netflix, and now we've seen the reverse of that. And I think the Mr. Beastifying of content across mainstream media that came from YouTube is super interesting. But I don't necessarily feel like one is going to overtake the other. I think there is a time and place for all types of creative media, and people are going to just consume it in different ways. And whether it's Disney taking the plunge and uploading High School Musical in 51 parts on their TikTok channel for people to scroll through, because that was something I saw recently. If that's how people are going to consume content, then so be it. At least the companies are starting to, adapt to consumer culture and trends. I think that's the main thing here.
I couldn't agree more, because recently Amazon Prime and the Sidemen have made a deal together. They're posting Sidemen cook-off videos, which you can also find on YouTube, but you can also watch it on Amazon Prime, which I found quite interesting, because I could just,
It's an interesting test, right? And I think equally, you've seen the Mr. Beast series that you could watch one part on YouTube and then the other part on the platform. And I think it's an interesting test of how these viewers will convert over to traditional paid platforms and be on these more free platforms. I'm interested in the Sidemen one, and to see how that's sort of performing as well. I think, we've got to find a way for traditional and digital to work together and complement each other. I think there's unlocks for both. I think for the traditional studios, they get the creators' brains and knowing how to tell a story and engage a modern audience. But equally, I know from the Sidemen's perspective, or creators that I work with who've gone to major distribution channels, they get exposure to much larger budgets, to much larger sets, production teams. That can be a blessing and a curse. So I think, I love seeing the integration of how the worlds are colliding.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, talking about bigger budgets, we got Mr. Beast games, the entire game show he had at on Amazon Prime, which outperformed a lot of other traditional game shows.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, very cool to see. But yes, to close it up, like, what is one thing you wish someone had told you 5 years ago about building in public and about building a media brand for yourself?
Wow. Well, like I say, I think go back 5 or so years ago, personal brands was not a thing that people talked about. I think content looked super different back then. That was, just the start of the rise of TikTok when we were in, sort of the 2020, 2021 years. I think what I would go back and sort of say to myself, I've really leaned in the last 5 years to outside opinions and voices and getting fresh pairs of eyes on things. I think, the company I work with now, our CEO talks about having a day one mindset to your content and what you're creating and your business. And I think that's super important and so easy to lose in what you're doing. Like, I look at my channels now in a much different way than somebody who's never seen them and is coming in fresh would look at them. So I think whether you can have, hey, even if it's just you're a small creator and you have a friend look over what you're doing and what you're creating and give their opinion, having that outsider perspective is so valuable and shouldn't be not listened to. Jimmy, Mr. Beast, talked about the power of consultants and that he in his business uses consultants a lot. And equally in my professional life, that's something that we do as well, is using social media consultants, people with fresh pairs of eyes who can come in and look at our content and give their spin on it, or look at the wider industry, because they're not bogged down in the day-to-day that we are of the editing of the content and the next script to make the next shoot happen and the next brand deal. I think if I could go back, it would say get more fresh pairs of eyes, have more consultants, like build more of a community that can lift me up, and be, you are the result of the 5 people closest to you that you spend the most time with. So I think surrounding yourself with the right people, not necessarily believing everything that the LinkedIn thought leaders will tell you, but actually trying it for yourself, being in the channels, being in your DMs, creating content, and seeing where it takes you is methods I try to live by now.
That is fantastic, and thank you for sharing that. That is a method I'm going to try for myself as well, and put that to the test to myself. So AJ, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast today. And yeah, if you guys want to check out AJ's Instagram or LinkedIn, I'm going to link that down below so you guys can connect with him directly. And yeah, thank you guys for watching.
Appreciate it.